Welcome, everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Airwalk, and this is my Get a Grip on Your Intuitive Intelligence show where I tell you whether the experiences you're having are psychic, mediumistic, or empathic. If you want to get an intuitive ability assessment with me, you could book that anytime up on the website, ivyrivera.psychicmedium.com, and I will send you a voice clip directly letting you know what abilities are coming up with you. All right, Jill, my beautiful producer, is going to be taking your questions. $5 gets you the short answer, $10 gets you the long answer. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok, all right, you're going to see her put that information up in the comment section. So just grab it from there. If you are on, I believe, Facebook or YouTube, you could sort of do it right here through YouTube in StreamYard. And we are looking for questions directly about your abilities, but also if you just have a strange experience and you want to know, this thing happened to me, what ability is this connected to? That's absolutely fine. I love those types of questions as well. I do want to open with sort of learning opportunity here while you guys submit your questions. Can you hear her? I'm 10 minutes late on her dinner. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I know, Ezzy. I know, honey. So we are always supposed to be learning and growing, okay, with our intuitive intelligence. There is always something more, another layer of depth to fully understanding the messages that we're receiving, how our intuition works, and which is which. Is it empathic? Is it psychic? Is it mediumistic? If you don't have sort of that basic knowledge, it's really hard to polish up, improve upon your skills, and perfect your craft. And I found that, even today, I'm going through another lesson that sometimes drives me crazy, and this is weather-related predictions. So, my experience and what I'm working on this week, this is just a good reminder for everybody, and here's a helpful tip. When you are using your psychic ability is your third eye. That's your clairvoyance, okay? That has nothing to do with spirit. It has nothing to do with you being an empath. It is just your psychic ability, your gut instinct. When you're using that for something like a weather prediction, and weather is constantly moving, so we would say technically weather is like a free will zone, okay? It's really very rarely like destiny charted, even if you have people at the news station predicting it, okay? They're so bad at it. It's basically free will. We don't know. It's a crapshoot, right? So one of the issues I'm having this week is that I'm trying to decide ahead of time for certain events that I may go work, whether or not the weather is going to hold up for me. If I'm going to have a beautiful sunshiny day, I'm going to show up for that event. However, I am still struggling sometimes to perfect the art of prediction on weather because the weather is moving, and I'm learning a hard lesson in being able to look logically at the weather reports. And I'm feeling psychically like it's okay. I could sign up for that event and it may go well. But I'm still having a weird feeling like I'm in a gray zone, like there's some kind of an underlying potential problem with the event. Something's wrong, something's off, but I have no proof. Eventually, you have to make a decision in life. And so I, for example, made the decision to go ahead and agree to be at an event. And no sooner do I do that and I register, the weather moves. And even though it had been clear skies, sunny day, now we're seeing lightning and, these 40% predictions of bad weather. And it's incredibly annoying. But I forgot a golden rule. And that is that when I am using my psychic ability and it's coming up as a gray zone, too much free will, I don't know. It could go good. It could go bad. It could be great. It could be awful. When you find yourself trying to make a decision based on that gray information, you really need to call in your guides. You really need to call in your deceased loved ones. You need to call in spirit to help you out. And I made the mistake of not doing that this week, and I'm potentially paying the price for it. So remember, when you're confused about something, It's not that there is no answer. It's just that it's up to you. It's a little bit of good and bad. It's not a black or white. And calling in spirit to confirm what would be best for you is always a wise decision. Okay. So don't ever shy away from asking for help, and don't rely exclusively on any one of your intuitive intelligences. I train my students in the psychic mediumship course. You should be using a combination of empathic, psychic, and mediumistic as often as possible. Okay. The golden rule: one is not enough sometimes. All right. So I'm going to learn the hard way this week. Maybe. Let's hope not. All right. Fingers crossed. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our first question. Oh, real quick, I wanted to say thank you to my members. Everybody, please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment of any kind, and please do subscribe. If you want to become a member here on YouTube, you can hit the join button. Thank you always for your support. Kathleen, Yolanda Fisher, Jennifer Cole, Michaela Garcia, Tiffany Smith Villarreal, Marae D, Mariposa Oscura, Masubi, Jill Marie, Cody, Stella Marie, Heather G, Mary, Audra, Erica Trotter, Robin Hartling, Chicken Mama, Tristan Marion, Edgar Velarde, Sienna Altieri, Vanessa, Me Love 716, Andrea M, and Jan Phillips. I appreciate you so much. All right, and what is our first question, Jill? What do we have? Ayana has a $5 question. How can I improve my spiritual skills? Okay. So when these aren't spiritual skills, all right. So we really want to think of spiritual development as being something that you do in the moments when you win, in the moments when you end a karmic cycle, when you remove a toxic habit or a block from your life officially, when you level up in your skill set, when you are out in your everyday life and instead of making a shit decision, you make a fabulous decision, right? You choose a high vibration over a low vibration that is habitual or reactive. That is how you spiritually develop and increase your spiritual skills. What we're talking about with mediumship, psychic ability, empathic ability is just energy. One has nothing to do with the other one. So when we're talking about improving upon your skills, you have to first of all learn which category you're talking about. Are you trying to improve upon empathic ability, psychic and clairvoyant ability, or mediumship? Now, mediumship is only going to improve for you, meaning instead of channeling just darker, lower level spirits, you're going to be able to channel spirits in the light, higher vibrational spirits that have crossed over into like heaven, the higher dimensions, the other side. That could also include like angels, other people's guides, saints, even, higher up master teachers like Christ. Anyways, if you want to be doing this, you want to be getting out of only channeling low vibrational spirits as a medium, which I often connect to dark arts, and you want to get into the higher vibration. What you have to also do there is clean up your everyday care that you show up, whether you have tools, you have a Ouija board, you say you want to channel them, you want to host a seance, they're not going to come through with you if your vibration is low level energy. So it is law of attraction and they match. You will be able to channel spirits from the light if you are removing toxic relationships, habits, and situations from your life every single day, working on leaning into, tapping into that higher vibration for yourself. Okay. So the magic, as a lot of people like to call it, that channels through us, in this case, we're talking about spirits that channel through us, are in direct correlation to the energy of that individual trying to channel, if that makes some sense. All right. So that's how you can improve upon that. And every area is a little bit different. Okay. Psychic and empathic, we have different tools for that. All right. So let's move on to another question. Thank you so much for that, Ayana. We have one from Latasha, and this is a $10 question. So Latasha wants to know, what are my gifts? So Latasha, when I go over here with you, the first thing I'm really noticing is a lot of psychic ability, and you may be kind of pulling this out of your pocket in regards to judgment on people. So just say you have a friend and this friend is dating someone new. You're going to be like, that's not it. This is maybe at best a 3-week situation ship. These things. So a lot of people would say, oh, maybe you're judgmental. But what I say it is really your psychic ability and your empathic ability coming together simultaneously to use the best of your discernment. And when we talk about psychic ability in this case, we're really talking about your clairvoyance, which is like your third eye or higher mind, and the ability to see into the future. So there is some timeline involved in this. In this example, let's say, where your friend comes and introduces you or is talking about, this new love partner, and you're saying, no, this isn't going to last past 3 weeks. You're going to start seeing this person's true colors or whatever. That suggests that you're using your clairvoyance to predict ahead into the future. You are clearly watching something like a vision, like a movie play out in your head. Okay. Now, the other thing we're talking about with this high level of discernment, judgment, as some people will call it, is this empathic ability that you have. And you hit the third and fourth levels of empathic ability when you were ballpark like 11, 12 years old. So something happened in your life during that time. Looks to me like some family circumstances that were tumultuous that sort of pushed you, okay, into the higher levels of empathic ability. You can check out the empathic awareness class up on the website anytime, okay? That'll help you to understand what that means, third and fourth levels. Now, when you are tapping in voluntarily and involuntarily, using your empathic ability, what happens is that you are sort of taking information and energy off of the atmosphere, the situation, the people that you're dealing with. So in this example, you would be taking information and energy from your friend. And if she mentioned this other person that she's dating, it's called energy jumping. You're taking, or a physical impression, you're taking an energetic impression from that person as well. And you're sort of comparing notes. You're doing the math. You're saying the math is not mathing here. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to add up. Okay. Now, I think there are a lot of things you could obviously do with this. If you want to do it professionally for people, people would definitely come to you for the truth. They would come to you for straight up information, no bars held, like trying not to sugarcoat. They want something straight up so they can trust the info, the direction that you're giving them for their highest and best good. You could also take this in some more kind of paranormal like if people are having paranormal problems, usually it's people that are haunted, okay? Not locations. Sometimes it is locations are haunted. People who are having paranormal problems, you would have a unique skill and ability to help them to identify what's going on, what the root issue is, and what the solutions are when you have these two abilities working together. You could also use this in criminal investigations, missing persons cases. So there's a lot of value in this. Okay, you also have a lot of mediumship going on, but we are out of time. So I would focus, if I were you, on those two key areas and polishing up your craft in those areas, but also not being afraid to give it out. Okay. All right. Thank you, Latasha. We have another question coming in here from an Edgar. This is a $10 question. Edgar wants to know, at my work, my coworkers work with rude parents. I notice that the parents I work with are very respectful to me. Is that because of my empathic ability? You could be working with a lot of women. Women get treated like shit. If you really want to see what people are made of, look at how they talk to a woman. Okay. So this is why we tend to think that our experience is other people's experience. And then we credit ourselves for something when it's actually maybe something else. So we want to be a little more open-minded about other aspects of what could be putting them in an unfortunate, disrespected scenario here. I think that it's also this idea, and again, we're back to gender roles, that if you show up, even if you have less experience than the women that are working there, you're going to automatically get more respect because people see you as a male and they say, oh, he is good at this. He's better at this than them. I won getting this person at this place instead of one of these women. It's an unfortunate reality. Okay. So I think what you're seeing is a lot of that type of energy. As far as your empathic ability goes, you know, I don't necessarily know that that's highly influencing this. I think that it can definitely help you, though. Let's focus on that for a moment. I think that your ability to understand what's needed is something that a few of your other coworkers here have, but you may be a little bit more reserved in implementing it. So you may stick to the handbook. You may choose to be a little bit more maybe clinical in some of your approaches until really just the right time. You may wait and sort of keep that empathic ability as like a card you could play and put down on the table later on in just the right moment. And I think that it's in that understanding that you've sort of passed that mark where you could be using more of your intuition. When you go right past that mark, it's almost like this thing needs to happen. It's becoming almost urgent. And then you really seem to bring it. You bring your A game with this. And it can make for a powerful delivery. It can make for the client, the customer, to feel as though they had a dramatic sort of breakthrough. And it's not untrue. But it's really because you're bringing that, intuitive intelligence to the table at the time that you did. And so they would be drawn to coming back to you. I think one of the things that you're learning more about too is that when you use your intuitive intelligence, you allow it to trump your logic or your emotion. You are finding that people are sort of addicted to that type of energy, and that is absolutely true. So people read it, even if they don't understand what they're reading. People do read it as an authentic, powerful, truthful, dynamic exchange, and they get kind of hooked. Okay, so that could definitely level you up compared to some of your other coworkers who aren't coming from empathic ability. They're just using the handbook. They're just using the clinical approach. They're just using the logic of how they were trained. Okay. Thank you so much for that question. I want to remind everyone too that I say this frequently. Your intuitive intelligence always trumps your emotional intelligence and your logic. Always. Now, sometimes they'll match, and that's great, but you can't count on that. Okay. So remember, intuition is never going to lie because it's based on energy. Energy doesn't lie. But we can be programmed with emotion and logic. And we are programmed. So let's move on to another question. We have one coming in here from Kim Dennison. What are my gifts or abilities? And this is a $5. Okay. Kim, when I go over here with you, the first thing that I'm feeling is sort of a pulling, like you're pulling at spirit. You are asking for more interaction. And I think that's a good approach. I do think that you have some mediumship that runs down through your bloodline. We can also have possibly some native blood in here going back a bit of a ways. And I think that the idea that you say to spirit, I am here, I'm available, I want more, let's talk, let's interact, it's going to work for you. I do think that you need to clean up your discernment on that, because sometimes when you're inviting it in or you really want it or you're pulling at it, you're going to attract everything, high vibration and low vibration. And so you want to be mindful that you don't want to just interact with spirit. You want to interact with spirits from the light. And I think that you can level up, okay, leaps and bounds doing this for the next probably year and 3 months or so with your mediumship abilities. The other thing that really comes up for you is a lot of empathic ability. Now, empathic, and then some psychic stuff, especially if you want to use tools like tarot, for example. Your psychic ability may be like, off the charts, like on fire, okay, a lot of the time. Now, if you want to look at your empathic ability and what's happening there, we're really talking about you accidentally absorbing from other people. That's not the greatest situation. Again, the empathic awareness class is up on my website and it'll teach you how to block. Be careful. If you find that when you're around other people, you're like, I can only do this for 20 minutes. Or even if you really wanted to show up at a party, you're like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm melting, okay? Or I forget who I am. What is me and what is others? I'm losing myself. You do take in other people's energy. So you have something called clairsentience, which means you have physical impressions of what they're dealing with in your own body. If they're sick, they have the flu, you have an upset stomach. If they're in the room, if they had an injury to their leg, your knee is going to start causing you pain, back pain, headaches, whatever it is. If you're around, you're super sensitive to people who are dealing with drug and alcohol abuse issues. You may feel the minute you get around them like you have a terrible migraine, like stabbing pain or dehydration. Be mindful of what your empathic ability means for you right now and how you want to be a little bit more careful about not over-absorbing other people's stuff. You choose when you're going to address it and how you're going to use it. Okay. Thank you so much for that question, Kim. That's a good one and a good lesson. Who has that? I would love to hear in the comment section who finds that sometimes you're around people. I don't care if it's on the subway. I'm not talking about people you're interacting with necessarily. This could be through social media. This could be just people in your environment. Who finds that sometimes you're around other people and you all of a sudden feel totally drained, like you must lay down, extremely exhausted. You have a terrible stabbing pain in your temples or a horrible headache, like a band of pressure. Now, it may not last, but it is there for a minute or two. And then you feel like dehydrated, almost like you have a hangover. Hangovers were the worst. I'm telling you, you have someone around you, right, who is dealing with drug and alcohol abuse issues. Like that is almost 100% of the time what that is. Okay, let's move on to another question. Jill says, oh man, I have to practice what is mine and what isn't. I get sick or ill if others are. And I get situational migraines. I love how you said that, Jill. Or nausea. Yes, 100%. And on the note of getting nauseous, I have a church service coming up for Roots Revival Interfaith in August. I don't remember what date I chose. It's one of the Sundays. Okay, I think it's the third Sunday of the month. But anyways, it's going to be on neurodivergence or intuition. So we're going to break down when it is something like, autism, ADD, OCD, being neurodivergent versus when you have intuition kicking in, but they really do look identical a lot of the time. And nausea comes with both. And so one of the things I'm going to talk about there at church is when we make eye contact, whether you're neurodivergent or you're highly intuitive, when you make eye contact with someone, you could throw up if you hold it for too long. So when people are always saying, why aren't you looking at me? What are you, insecure? Why aren't you making enough eye contact? We can't. We can glance at you for a minute, but we have to look away. When we lock eyes, we get way too much information. And it is, like Joe was just saying, like a floodgate of information, a flood of energy, and anything toxic that's in you or that you're dealing with hits us like a punch in the face. And it is situational migraine or nausea immediately. Okay, so there are other reasons from just being neurodivergent, why people don't make a lot of eye contact or just aren't comfortable with it. You try to avoid it. And even for neurodivergence, it is this effect. So tune in for that, you guys. All right, let's move on to another question. Okay, so this is another one from Edgar. This is a $10 question. All right, Edgar, you are my best customer. Thank you. Edgar says, are my spiritual gifts going to get stronger as the years go by? They will. Intuitive intelligence increases every 5 to 6 years naturally. So, we see our major increase at 3 years old, and then 5 and 6 years old. Some people get it at 11, but most will get it between 14 and 16. And then, it's usually like around 23 to 25. And then it kind of, it seems to taper off, but it doesn't. It increases every 5 to 6 years. Now, if you go through a situation where you are pregnant, you give birth to a child, you have any type of an illness, a disease, or an accident, an injury to your body, if you lose a loved one close to you, including pets, if you go through a major life change like a divorce, job loss, any type of a crisis, I don't know, you get hit with a tornado. I mean, literally anything. Okay. Anything that's sort of traumatic, acute trauma, this will automatically increase your abilities in all 3 areas: empathic, mediumistic, and psychic. And, then we have some other, random reasons why it can happen, like a kundalini or a certain type of download. You could have like a spiritual awakening. There are also like positive triggers for this to happen. So yes, it does. And it happens to absolutely every single person on the face of the earth. The difference between whether or not we actually increase with our abilities is based on your application, the opportunity that you have to embrace it and to polish up those skills is up to you. So you have to use your free will. What most people do is they try to shove it down. They think they can lock it away. They say, well, I'm blocking. If you're blocking, you have a million disorders. I bet you've got a pharmacy in your bathroom right now. Okay, like you can't do that. So there is the decision eventually to address it and to use the energy wisely, or to act like it didn't just happen and get misdiagnosed with a bunch of disorders or have actual disorders and medications that aren't going to work. Okay, so it's up to you. But yes, absolutely. And that's all of us are the same. All right, we're going to move on to another question. Thank you so much, Edgar. Love that. Cindy on TikTok has a $5 question. So Cindy wants to know, why am I having apocalyptic dreams and visions when I'm awake? Fires, floods, wars, etc. Okay, so this has been a common problem for people lately. And I think there are a few different reasons for this. For many of us, it increased around 9/11. Then for those of you where you didn't see increases in your apocalyptic prophecies, okay, whether you're asleep and you're dreaming it or you're awake and you're having actual visions, if you didn't have it around 9/11, you may have had it during COVID. If you didn't have it during COVID, you would be having it looking at the genocide in Gaza. So we have certain triggers that happen in world events. And during that time, if you were highly psychic, you would have not only seen what was going to occur, you may have also seen what's going to happen after that and all like future possible war zones, attacks, apocalyptic type situations that will play out in the world. Some people are even feeling that on a higher, like universal level. And it can become a situation where you have to determine how much of that you're really going to feed, how much of it you really want to factor into your future decisions, and how much of that information you plan to share with others, because it is very disturbing info and it's often very accurate. Now, some of what's happening with people though, too, especially after like COVID and with the genocide in Gaza, we are watching a lot of people have apocalyptic dreams and visions, but they seem more symbolic than literal. It's not playing out like a deja vu in real time. It's seeming a little bit too much like a movie. And so we tend to dismiss it and say, I don't think that was real. I don't think that was an actual prophecy. But I want to warn you, it may be. Not all prophecy, whether you're awake or asleep, comes through in concrete detail, like an actual vision in real time, like a deja vu. It could come symbolically, even cartoony, and it could be indicating 100% the way it will play out, but in a way that your brain can sort of process it without shutting down and going into a trauma response. Okay. Big part of the reason, moving on to another question here. Thank you, Cindy. Moving on to another question, but big part of the reason so many of us are having more of these apocalyptic dreams and visions is because we have been in alignment with that future potential reality. Okay, now we do have free will future. We have free will to make changes and go in a better direction and alter that. But at some point, certain things do become destiny. And so when we are making poor decisions and we're destroying the environment, and we're electing terrible leaders and we're gearing up more toward these World War III, type situations, that potential reality starts to become more and more of a destiny charted reality. Therefore, every psychic out there is going to start having prophecy about it. Okay, so in its own way, it is a warning. All right, everyone needs to get in alignment with a higher vibration. Fight harder for the greater good. All right, we're going to move on to another question here from an Anne Marie. This is a $10 question. Okay, Anne Marie says, "Hey Ivy, what are my psychic abilities? I feel like my intuition is getting stronger." Okay. So when we're looking exclusively at psychic abilities, and this is for Anne Marie, let me see what you have going on. One of the things you have going on is an ability to touch an object, or to, like, say you're at the grocery store, okay, and you got like different things lined up that you could pick. You have a way of being like, meh, I don't like the energy off of that object. Okay. A lot of people would associate this with OCD, and I have OCD. It is connected to that ability, right? People with OCD are just especially aware of this. You don't want to touch certain objects, or you do want to, especially in regards to your food, your drinks. You don't want to ingest, right, the energy from certain objects. So you're increasing with your ability to understand that objects hold energy, and this could be positive or negative. I like that for you. What it means on a larger scale, if you want to take it like beyond the supermarket, is that people would probably come to you to find lost objects. This could also be beneficial if you're trying to use more remote viewing. Now, remote viewing can be used for criminal investigations, missing persons, if you're looking for a body, if you're looking for a vehicle, if you're looking for a person, an article of clothing, something like this. You can, through remote viewing, read the energy from atmospheres. So something like knowing when you're in the grocery store that you don't want that steak, you want the steak 3 back because this one the meat is contaminated or something, or there was something with the cow, okay, and you're going to be taking in that negative energy. You want something more pure. The same ability there transfers to being able to, if someone were to book a reading with you, for example, to go in your mind's eye through clairvoyance into their home and see the wallpaper, see the furniture, see where they have different photographs and memorial spaces and an urn even, from a deceased loved one, different objects. This is also useful in paranormal work. Now, a lot of people don't want to take it in that direction. I don't blame you. However, when you have remote viewing, ability, and you're able to read energy off of objects, you're also able to say, when someone is dealing with like a haunted house, what we can do to pinpoint where it's coming from and how to fix it, things like that could also be entailed. So there's a lot going on there with that you may want to look at. It does transfer, and you may notice this over the next 1 year in particular, but then the second year, if you're using it, it could get really intense medical intuitive work. Okay, so like psychic surgery, pulling disease out of people's body, which is like way more powerful than Reiki. Being able to look at someone's body and scan it and find disease, pain, future potential disease. I mean, it's tremendous. Okay, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Definitely use it. People need it. Okay, we do better than the doctors, that's for sure. Okay, let's move on to another question. Thank you, Anne Marie. This is from a Jess on TikTok. This is a $5 question. I just want to stop real quick. If you guys tuned in late, you didn't give this video a thumbs up, please do so now and drop a comment of any kind. Subscribe, and if you want to become a member, go over to YouTube at Ask Ivy and hit the join button to show you the different tiered options. Thank you so much for your support, everybody. Also, share this video. All right. And for those of you who want to book an intuitive ability assessment for yourself and just get like a private voice clip of me telling you what you have, you can go up onto the website, Rivera to book that, and I'll email that over to you. All right. So Jess on TikTok, $5 question. She wants to know, what ability makes me shake when I'm near certain people, especially if they try to talk to me? So when certain people try to talk to you, they're not really trying to talk to you. They're talking at you and they're spreading some bullshit. Okay. So they're lying. They're being deliberately deceitful. Maybe they're omitting something. They're trying to charm you. They're trying to hustle you. I'm always saying there are two kinds of people in the world. You got your hustlers and you have your people getting hustled. Okay. Now the people who are potentially getting hustled are going to have certain physical reactions to the hustlers. And that is going to be shaking, left eye twitching, a burning pain going up the back of your neck into your head, upset stomach. It could feel like you're automatically getting drained, like you must lay down and take a nap. It could also, feel a lot like you're kind of having just an anxiety attack when this person is around you, and you may think of them afterward for no reason at all. And it's your brain's way of trying to figure out what they're up to. You may also go deaf, and I don't mean like literally, but it's like you can't hear them. So when they're talking at you, there's so much bullshit coming at you. You cannot understand what they're saying. And you may seem rude. Okay. So sometimes they're like, are you listening to me? Did you hear? You're like, really? I didn't couldn't even hear you. All right. So these are all physical warnings that someone approaching you should not be, or that you should not be engaging there. And it's a sign of hustling for some ulterior motive, obviously, usually lying, which is part of the game. And I think that the shaking is something you could also experience when you're next to someone who is similar to you. So like I always know when another person with my specific type of abilities has walked into the room. Okay. Or if I'm sitting right next to a level 4 empath and we're having a similar reaction to the energy in the room, it could cause almost like a shaking or a dysregulation of your nervous system. So you are either right next to someone who is exactly like you or someone who wants to take advantage of you. So you're going to have to learn which is which in any given situation. Thank you so much for that question. We have another one coming in. And this is from Yolanda, my beautiful member, YouTube member. Yolanda, how are you? Okay, Yolanda wants to know, hi, Ivy, what are my abilities? Okay, so Yolanda, when I go over here with you, one of the things that you have going on is trance. We would call this physical mediumship or trance mediumship back in the day. And because Houdini went through internationally and basically busted everyone who was faking it, everyone kind of went into hiding with this, and they took it down off the stage. And instead of doing full-on possession and trance, or what we call physical mediumship, everyone moved into mental mediumship. Mental mediumship is where you keep the spirit outside your body and you just sort of listen to them and then you reiterate whatever they said. Okay. Now, you have both of these. However, when we talk about trance mediumship, what you may do is block out periods of time. So it could almost seem like you had not blackouts. It's not dangerous necessarily, but it's like you forget you said things. You don't even know you are channeling a spirit and giving healing information to someone. This is something that you can go in and out of without, like I said, full awareness. But usually at some point, people will start saying to you, what you said to me was really meaningful. And you'll be like, I said that? I didn't say that. Like, why would I say that? And you may not have any recollection of like even that part of the conversation. Okay. So, what do you want to do with it? Obviously it's valuable. It's your ability to full on channel spirit for healing purposes. And you may want to learn the lost language, hope to see it psychic mediumship course, learn what that means in terms of you turning it on and off, saying yes or no, because it is a form of possession, which can also mean that if you're going through a dark period in your life, you are susceptible to negative attachments and possessions also. These are people who find that one day they go to have a drink at the bar and, you're full on blacking out, or you're turning into, you're channeling another spirit. I think this is a scary message. I did not intend for it to be. I'm sorry. But the thing is this. It's a tremendous ability. Anyone who uses their mediumship, even if you're using mental mediumship exclusively, eventually you're going to realize, you are a physical channeler. And I think that this is a good lesson for everyone, to take the time to say that you identify, you have this tremendous ability to say incredibly healing things, very insightful help you can offer to others, but you want to be in control of that. All right. That's a big wake up call and a good jumping off point. All right. Thank you, Yolanda. Hopefully that wasn't too creepy. Let's move on to another one. Let's see. We have from Rachel on TikTok. This is a $5 question. She says, I know when something terrible is going to happen or someone is going to die. What ability is that? That is called messenger of death syndrome. Another creepy answer. A lot of people who have this turn hyper religious, or they decide that anything from the spiritual world is demonic. And they could also carry a lot of survivor's guilt. So hopefully you're not falling into any of those categories, because it's really not necessary. This is a natural ability that we all have to some degree. However, people who have messenger of death syndrome are able to predict world tragedies, car accidents, just toxic events. They can predict illness and disease. They can predict death. And it's not just for those of you who see it in your family. Let's say you predict that your uncle is going to die, and then a couple days later he does, or when your grandma is officially going to pass, even though everyone's been at her bedside waiting, the moment it happens. Okay. When it branches out and you're no longer just seeing it for your loved ones, you are now seeing it for the guy in the truck next to you at the stoplight. Okay. You're seeing it at the grocery store with that lady who's 3 people in front of you in line. You're like, oh my God, she's going to die in 3 days. When it gets to that point, I would say you officially have messenger of death syndrome. And what you need to do at that point is to learn discernment skills. We talk about this in the psychic mediumship course. You have to learn discernment skills, so that you're sticking with an ethical code of conduct, because you can't just be coming up to people and saying at Wegmans, you're going to kick it in 3 days. You can't be pull Long Island mediums on, everybody and going up to people on the street. But, sometimes death is negotiable. I say most of the time it's highly negotiable. And when we look at like Vedic astrology, we're looking at these sort of death points, these little like triangles. Eventually, though, someone is going to have to pass away, or something may be destiny charted that it occurs. And in those cases, you really shouldn't be getting involved in a in a invested way where you're saying like, you can avoid this, because that isn't even true. So you're going to have to learn what is contracted versus, what is free will and can be manipulated. And then you have to figure out your approach. What are you going to do with this information? Okay. When are you going to give it out? It can become disruptive to your life. And once you really have it and you've peaked with the ability where, like I said, you're seeing it with people everywhere, you have to start learning how to set boundaries. Again, we talk about this in the psychic mediumship course, how and when to put your foot down and how to discipline yourself in not feeding it so that you're constantly getting more of it, because we don't need to know all that. Sometimes, what are you going to do when you're driving? You're going to pull over and tell someone? No. So you turn it off. You say, I don't care that it's happening. I don't need to know it. And you get more in control of it, so it's not running your life. Because it's also depressing to walk around knowing these things all the time. I've had it since I was very, very small. I really don't remember a time when I didn't have it. And it is, if I'm not constantly in control of it, it can cause depression for sure, and a lot of anxiety. Okay, so be mindful. All right, thank you so much for your question, Rachel. I think I went over on that one, but I know a lot of people have this. I do want to hear from you in the comments if this is something you think you have. Let's move on to another one. Yolanda said, I didn't see that coming. I bet you did. All right, let's see. Okay, we're at time. Very good. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I will be back. I think next time is church service. And I'll be talking about the difference between intuitive hits and neurodivergence. And so check that out. I'll be posting that soon. And again, if you want to book a reading, a psychic fair, a party, or an intuitive ability assessment with me, go to Rivera Psychic Medium.com and I'll get that right out to you. All right. Thanks so much, Jill. Thanks, Spirit.